Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. We're going to get started in just about a minute. I wanted to let you know you're in the right place if you're here for to learn about prospecting during a recession and have a interesting stuff for you. I think that you'll find really exciting. So hang on tight. We're going to be starting in just about a minute and we'll dive right in. So you are in the right place if you're here to learn about how to prospect during a recession. All right, welcome to the webinar, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your day this morning to attend our webinar on prospecting during a recession. This is a quote that I heard at a live workshop with Grant Cardone a couple years ago, maybe a year ago, I think, a little over a year ago. Everything that's going to change your life costs something, time or money. Keep that in mind, maybe in the back of your mind as we go through this webinar today, because we're showing you something that I think you're going to find really valuable, and it's going to take one or the other, right? But you're going to have a choice. So just keep that in mind as we go. So welcome, everyone. Let's just kind of dive in here and talk a little bit about what this is. So you are in the right place. If you're here to learn how to make your prospecting recession proof, and I like the idea of not having to buy leads again and having your own lead generation machine, your own organic machine that you control instead of somebody else. You control how those leads are qualified, how they come to you, what kind of attracts them to raise their hand for you. And so as we go through this webinar today, you'll see that. Just a couple of quick housekeeping things. I think we're going to probably run somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes, and we'll have time for questions at the end. So if you can feel free to put your questions in the question box as they come up. We will try to address those in the block of time that we save for the end of the webinar. And I guess that's about all we have to say about that. So you may not have had a lot of luck prospecting during the pandemic. A lot of agents are struggling. You're not alone. This is a common occurrence because a lot of the stuff that you used to do, like seminars, dinner seminars, direct mail, even Facebook has gotten pretty tricky to get to work in this environment. So obviously getting the normal networking referrals and leads that way has kind of gotten the shutdown along with everything else, right? In many states, depending on what part of the country you're in, if you happen to be in the unfortunate area that was shut down, that certainly could have affected your business. And so we really felt the need to come to you with something that we've been testing actually and working on for well over a year, and variations of this, but this is kind of a new hybrid version of some other stuff that we've been using in the past successfully independently of each other, and it's all kind of formed into one thing here. But bottom line, if you've been struggling with prospecting during the pandemic, this is a universal problem, and we have, I think, an answer to that. So part of the reason we think there's an issue here is that most people don't have a message that's connecting to the market right now. There's so much distraction and chaos in everybody's mind and stress. There's a bit of paralysis going on, which is what you saw in our webinar invitation. How does your prospecting hold up to pandemic paralysis, right? Clients are distracted in a million ways, whether it's social media or otherwise. Now we've got an election on top of that, and we've got social unrest on top of that with cities on fire. Kind of tough to get somebody's attention when you're competing with all of that stuff, right? So you need a really powerful message that gets in their mind and addresses their most relevant concerns, an offer that's going to at least seem pretty irresistible for them, or a no-brainer at least at a minimum, and then have it all in a system that we have tested in the current marketplace. So that's really the expectation of this webinar. So as I said, you're in the right place if you're looking for a better or more effective way to prospect for new clients. This is also going to be something that's simple. I think that's probably critical because, in the modern digital age, complicated means it doesn't get done for a lot of us. So simple is important, and that's really, I think, a big part of this. Affordable, and when I say affordable, it might even be something that you can do entirely for free just with bootstrapping and effort. So that's, I think, exciting and empowering for you as well. And you can do it 24/7, which, you couldn't do that before, right? You couldn't prospect, when you were at the local BNI meeting. That probably isn't happening anymore. Now you can do with this, what we're going to see today, you can really have systems running 24/7. So my goal for this training is twofold. One is to get you a real solid plan that you can put in place for long-term prospecting. And I say long-term because prospecting isn't a one-time thing. It's not an event. It's a process, right? So I want you to get something in this process in place as soon as possible, because it's something then that you can rely on to work in any economy, right? And with our help, we've been able to make sure that it does work in the current economy even. And the other goal here is that you understand that really one of the best ways to prospect today is to find these prospects and attract them through LinkedIn using a powerful message. We call that magnetic marketing. Dan Kennedy coined that term. And couple that with some sort of an irresistible offer, as I already mentioned, that combined together, when we can target these highly qualified prospects through LinkedIn, coupled with the right message that really connects to them and this irresistible offer, we get people to raise their hand and want to engage with you. So, and I don't know what you call a lead, but we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go, and we bring our guest speaker on as well. What is a lead, right? That's a question that we'll tackle here too. So there's 3 prospecting discoveries we've made in building this and testing this over some time. Some may seem self-evident, so we'll just get into them, and maybe some others not so much, right? Prospecting discovery right now, why stuff isn't working. As we already stated at the beginning of the webinar here, so the consumer is so distracted right now. You are in competition with highly charged emotional crap going on in people's lives, right? They could be unemployed. Their business could be struggling for survival. Their cash flow is decimated. Their business was burned down. Their company folded, whatever. I mean, there's so much going on right now. You've got a lot going on in the consumer's mind to compete with, and you better have a very pertinent message, or it's not going to move them to action, move them to want to connect with you. And so having that unique message that gives them that call to action to want to connect and learn more from what you do, learn more about what you do. Prospecting discovery number 2 is online marketing offers actually work best. This is kind of an unusual one. Maybe this is the counterintuitive one. Work best when combined with offline marketing deliverables. So I spent some time kind of studying what seemed to be working in the market by looking at other people's successful marketing campaigns. And one of the things I noticed is that when I'd see some marketing online, that oftentimes it drove you offline. So the deliverable was something I got in the mail, not a digital something or other, not strictly a Zoom appointment for 15 minutes. I mean, these are all fine to do those things. If you have a digital deliverable, that's great. That's certainly something that can be part of this, but oftentimes that's not enough. And so having this offline deliverable has been a critical piece of what seems to be working in the market right now. And through our testing, it does seem to be working. So, and then prospecting discovery number 3, maybe this might be the self-evident one. LinkedIn is the best source of online existing new affluent qualified lead opportunities, right? Maybe you don't know that though, right? LinkedIn has been around for a while. I know it's heated up a lot during the pandemic, but honestly, it's a gold mine, and most of us are not utilizing it, at least optimally. Certainly, suboptimally is probably more common, so if you're using LinkedIn at all, doing it better and doing it right and doing it with a proven process is going to be the critical difference between having LinkedIn be a gold mine and versus, you know, a vein of gold that's dried up, right? You don't get any responses. I'm guessing a lot of you out there have probably done some dabbling with LinkedIn and maybe haven't had much success. And part of that is you got to have the other two pieces kind of connected here too, right? How do we get through that clutter and that noise of the distractions that are happening right now in that Discovery One? How do we connect that with something that has a offline deliverable? And how do we message the right targeted people through prospecting discovery number 3, which is LinkedIn is where the money's at, right? So let's talk a little bit about the cost of not getting it right, right? This is a big deal. A lot of folks that don't get their marketing working right now, you know, face the same fate that some of the other businesses in the pandemic have, you know, a virtual shutdown, right? This is a scary time. And so some of you might be in a desperation mode where you'll just take anything you can get. You know, and when you're in that desperation mode, many of you maybe already know this, that prospects can smell that fear, that desperation, and oftentimes they are not very inclined to work with you, to say the least. You know, more often than not, those folks are going to flee the second they get a sense that you're kind of desperate for the sale. And so having a full pipeline is so critical to just having confidence and not having desperation in your sales process too. That confidence that you exude by knowing that you've got a pipeline of lots of other qualified people to talk to and that you're going to inevitably make some sales here makes every transaction work better. You're a better salesperson when you know you can rely on your prospecting to feed you. So, and you don't have to be in that take anything you can get kind of mode, which may be, you know, counterproductive because you're wasting time with low value opportunities. Unpredictable earnings, obviously not knowing where your next client is going to come from makes it tough to sleep at night sometimes, especially in the middle of a recession or a pandemic induced recession as we were dealing with today. And the other thing, you know, what I've seen, at least in my 20+ year career in the financial services business, is that we all kind of have this natural inclination to look for the new thing, to chase the shiny object. Not that you don't sometimes find something that is new, because there are trends and things change and the market dynamics have changed as we see right now. You know, what worked in January doesn't work in August. And so we have to adapt, right? And maybe that's why a lot of you are here today. But there's a cost to sort of looking constantly for the next new thing, right? You need to have a system that you can rely on, that you know is going to work, that's going to have that lead generation machine that's going to work for you year after year, month after month, and fill that pipeline for you. So you don't want to be in chase everything mode. Obviously, nobody wants unpredictable earnings, and you don't want to be sort of in that desperation mode where you're going to just take anything you can get because there's an opportunity cost most of the time in working for those little cases that aren't maybe even in your wheelhouse, right? So why are we doing this? Well, quality lead generation, from my experience as a direct response marketer, copywriter, the head of a marketing department for a very large FMO, is that this is a huge challenge for most advisors. And why is that? Well, most of the time you're technicians, you're really good at, you know, building plans and building relationships with consumers. Marketing is almost like an afterthought because you're kind of generating business through referrals. So how do I attract people to want something from me, right? And financial services is a weird kind of animal, right? There is not an urgent need most of the time to seek you out. You know, they're not like, oh, I'm out of, you know, my tires are bald and I need new tires tomorrow, or I can't drive across the state for a trip I need to take, right? So this is a little bit more of a squishy, how do we get them to move and take action with us now? And most of the time, you're not focused on, you know, building marketing systems. And there's a lot of work that goes into doing that. It's also kind of the mathematical side of your brain is employed with your core skill set, where the creative non-mathematical part of your brain is kind of more engaged in creating marketing and marketing campaigns, and it's a lot squishier. It's less tangible. There's a science to it too, but there's a lot of art. Lots of marketing during the pandemic has failed, so we know that trying to figure this out on your own is expensive and time consuming, even if you really know what you're doing. And so this is the other why, right? This is a huge challenge that most people aren't prepared for, and it's costly and expensive. Finally, purchase leads. Many of you, I'm guessing, are purchase leads. I'd be curious to find out how many of you out there have. If you want to just type that in the questions box, I'd be really curious to see how many of you have worked with purchase leads of various types, whether that's, term leads that they sell to 5 other agents, or exclusive leads that are, maybe, who knows, $300 a pop. A lot of times these aren't maybe necessarily the most qualified leads. You're not part of that process for developing and targeting the right people, so and pre-qualing through the lead generation process. So it's a little trickier. Obviously, purchase leads are a problem because you can't bootstrap. You can't just go out there and turn on some effort that produces qualified leads. And like I said earlier, sometimes these leads are sold to multiple agents. So that doesn't make it any fun to work those leads. Not only are you chasing them in a position of weakness rather than strength, rather than having them want to come to you, you're chasing them, and other agents may have already called them. Sorry, I'm actually doing this webinar from home, and one of my cats is a little loud, so if you hear her interrupt every once in a while, I apologize in advance, but one of the COVID side effects, right? So back to the 3 prospecting discoveries. I want to just go a little bit further into number 1 here before we move on. Okay, so we got a cat on this one too. So as I mentioned already, the discovery 1 is prospect, or the consumer in general is so distracted right now with the election, civil unrest, markets crashing, businesses failing, deadly virus that threatens to kill you or a family member, 24/7 sensationalized terrifying news. So pertinent messaging has to be the crux of everything you do in order to get through to a prospect that actually will motivate them to take some sort of an action. So I consider a lead, and as I mentioned in the beginning, we may talk a little bit more when I bring our guest on, but what I consider a lead is not just a name and phone number and contact info out of a phone book. Now, maybe in Glengarry Glen Ross, that was a lead. Today, I think a lead is somebody that has expressed interest. They've raised their hand. They've opted in. They've somehow self-identified as somebody who's interested in something that you're offering. And so it's going to take a very targeted and pertinent message that will motivate them to actually raise their hand and take that initial action that then identifies them as a lead for you. Now, that doesn't mean they're a great prospect at this point. If we did a good job targeting, they could be, they might not be. You're always, in any marketing campaign, you're probably always going to get some folks that are just not necessarily a great prospect, but hopefully with a good qualifying process on your part, you'll weed them out as quickly as possible. Now, sometimes we can actually rule out the folks that are really not a good, well-qualified prospect through the marketing message in and of itself. And I think what we do to a certain extent, what you're going to see here, does that to a certain extent already. So that's great. But we need to motivate them to take some form of action. And so the only way that happens is if you have the right message. So if you're out there marketing right now with boring kind of, I do financial planning, generic-y messaging, stuff created by carriers, honestly, most stuff created by FMOs too. Most of it is almost as good as the stuff you get from carriers. It's not going to have enough of a compelling reason to drive them to raise their hand and to take that action to seek you out for additional information. They're not a lead if they don't do that, though. In my opinion, they're absolutely not a lead unless they've raised their hand. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that messaging is here in a minute, near the end here today. So I want to just get into number 2 quick before I bring our guest on. Online offers with lead generation and financial services. So this is kind of particular to financial services, work best when combined with offers that include this offline deliverable. Online offers can work well, and be entirely digital outside of financial services. I don't think they work very well at all from my experience in testing this stuff when we don't have an offline deliverable. What do I mean by offline deliverable? I mean, it's something you put in a box or an envelope or something, and you send it out in snail mail, and they get it a few days later. We like to do it in a neat little packaged way. Dan Kennedy calls this a shock and awe package. So it might be, we send whatever it is we're going to send out, we send it out in a bright red foil envelope. So, when they get it, it looks like they have some special gift that just arrived for them. And so there's maybe some anticipation, some excitement to open the package and see what's in there. And instead of just a little bit of information like a bio or whatever, we have more information that creates more of an experience and even an impression that hopefully is a very positive first impression. So that brings me to our third one, and I'm actually going to bring our guest on before we go any further and talk about LinkedIn. So today I have Michael Kittinger. He is a LinkedIn direct response marketing and digital marketing and copywriting guru who I know personally, and he's very, very skilled at what he does. And he's going to talk a little bit more about a deep dive into why LinkedIn is the best source of online prospecting for these new or even affluent prospects that are highly qualified for you to make a sale to. So Michael, welcome.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you having me here. Welcome everybody who's online watching this. Can you see my screen?
We can. You are good to go. So let's dive in. Let's hear why LinkedIn today is really the unsurpassed way to connect to highly qualified prospects.
Yeah,
tongue twister for me,
and
right?
We'll get into all the. Do I now?
That was a little bit of a tongue twister.
A tongue twister. It sure was. We're going to get into more of the details here. LinkedIn's always been a great place, but as Jeff's mentioned, obviously with everything going on with, chamber events, B&I meetings, dinner seminars, like all these other methods have really come to a screeching halt. So more advisors are looking to LinkedIn. But the problem is most are not using the platform correctly. And so that's kind of part of what I want to share with you today. So I'm going to talk about who we are, just so you know a little. It's not going to take long, but just so you have some framework on where we're coming from, our 3-pillar framework, and then really what to do right now. So I'm the one on the left there in the blue shirt. Ironically, I'm wearing that same shirt today. Go figure. But Daniel, my business partner, Daniel, and I, we're both former advisors. So we know where you're at. We know the prospecting methods you're using and have used. I mean, I relied on referrals, word of mouth, chamber events, the kind of the standard places that you usually prospect for business. When I was an advisor, I never even thought about using LinkedIn. I had a profile, sure. It read more like a resume, but I never really used it or learned how to use it. It wasn't until after I left being an advisor, really got hooked and dove into the marketing side and partnering up with Daniel that we started really exploring how can we leverage this massive database to generate prospects. So again, you can see a little bit of background there, just so you kind of understand where we're coming from, who we are, and why what we're saying, you should probably pay attention. So I'm gonna just dive right in why LinkedIn is so powerful. Listen, there's over 600 million users 140 million in the US. And this was before COVID. So they've actually seen an accelerated rate of people jumping on LinkedIn, using LinkedIn. Over 270 million active users, active being they log in at least once a week. 40% of the active users use it daily. So sure, they may not be going on there like, like Facebook or something, or Instagram, where, I think my wife goes on Instagram like 20 times a day, but they are still on there every day. You can still, as we'll talk about here in a second, you can still connect with them. You can still get in front of them. You can still message them effectively. And then this bottom one's interesting. Only about 1% of the active users post content on a weekly basis. So, if you want a quick way to become a top 1% advisor in your area, just be active on LinkedIn. And it doesn't even mean posting content daily, right? I mean, just have a schedule and just weekly, a couple times a week, post valuable content. Jeff mentioned this, but I do want to dive in, because a lot of marketers will talk about, leads. We're going to generate leads. I mean, I got a message, and it was clearly an automated message, but I got a message the other day that they're going to help produce 200 leads in a month. And I'm thinking, well, if that's the case, then these obviously, we have different definitions of what a lead is. So what is a lead?
Which is probably why, by the way, Michael, sorry to interrupt,
yeah,
why a lot of people think that the leads that they do get suck.
Yeah, it's just, it's their
expectations about what it is.
They're not positioned it correctly. So from the beginning, I want to make sure we're all on the same page of what a lead is. Is it just a name and email? Is it someone who meets some type of criteria? Is it someone who's raised their hand and shows interest in what you do? If you want to drop in the chat a 1, 2, or 3, based on those 3, which one do you think a lead is? That's great. Get a little conversation engagement going on there. But how do you define a lead? Well, just so we're all on the same page, here's how we define a lead. And that is someone who has already met some form of criteria. And we'll talk about this here in a minute, what's an ideal audience, but they've met some form of criteria, and then they've raised their hand to learn more. So for instance, if I'm an advisor and I want to work with affluent business owners, if somebody who is a greeter at Walmart, they may be interested in what I have to offer, but to me that's not a lead, because they do not at all meet my criteria for an ideal audience. Like, they have to be somewhat qualified, and then they have to raise their hand saying, I'm interested in learning more. So now that we know what a lead is, and just again, so a little more context and framework. So
before you move on to that, I just wanted to say that doesn't necessarily make them a good prospect yet, right? Just a lead.
Correct. It doesn't mean this is a sales opportunity. Right. Yeah. That's if you think about the path somebody takes from becoming just a lead to an actual prospect to a sales opportunity. Like, this doesn't mean that they're ready to buy right now. But what it does mean is they've passed some form of initial screening, and more importantly, they have self-selected themselves. They've raised their hand and said, I'm at least interested in learning more. So and I think, Jeff, when we were talking earlier, some of these, especially they've gotten away from it more and more. But I know when I first started in the financial industry back in the early 2000s, I mean, some places would literally hand you a phone book and says, say, here's 100,000 leads, start calling, right? The whole dialing for dollars. Like, to me, that is not a lead.
Yeah, I'm betting there are people on this call that had that as their first, introduction. No, here's a phone book. There's all the leads you need. That's like Glenn Ross, right? Crazy, right? I mean, that's not a lead. It's just a database, right? That's about
exactly it. I mean, if you want that, I'll just export the entire list of everyone who's a user in LinkedIn and just start cold calling, right? Like, it doesn't take any marketing chops to just get a name, email, and phone number.
Yeah, you shouldn't be paying a whole lot just for a list. I mean, there's certainly some lists that might have a pre-qualified component to it. So at least you're getting an audience that's maybe a little more ideal, but you shouldn't be paying a whole lot of money for just a bunch of names and numbers, because that's not a lead in my book,
Correct.
or in
Yeah, if
Michael's.
somebody's trying to sell you leads, I mean, find out like how do they define leads? Because again, everyone's got some different definitions, and you may be thinking what you're getting is a list of, people who have raised their hand, who are somewhat qualified, and they may be just literally sending you, you know, a scraped list of any name, email in your geographic location. So be sure to ask people if somebody's trying to sell you a lead or a lead list or anything like that, like find out what that is.
What's the process? Yeah, there's stuff out there where, somebody might get a free gift card to a Applebee's or whatever. If they raise their hand for something, that's annuity related, but maybe they were mostly interested in the gift card, so you don't have somebody that's there for the right reasons either. So
No, that's a good point. And one of my issues with dinner seminars, and I know a lot of advisors use them and stuff, but even the people who show up, I don't necessarily consider a lead, because you don't know if they've raised their hand for the free meal, if you're offering a meal, or for the actual information you're providing. My in-laws go to those for the free meal. I'll just go ahead and flat out admit to it. Like,
all right, well,
they go for the food. They don't go for the information. So
I know this was
all
a
right,
point
so and then
you both wanted to make, so I'll let you get on with it. Thanks.
Yeah. So to put it in some context, because again, now that we've defined what is a lead, I want you to have some context in terms of like what I'm showing you are programs. We're getting our clients leads for roughly $30 to $60, and that's including like the cost of our paid program. Like, right, you can do it yourself. Obviously, you're essentially getting it for quote unquote free, although you're paying for it with your time and everything. But from a cost of our program to set everything up, to run everything, like they're paying essentially about $30 to $60 for somebody who's passed that initial screening and has raised their hand saying, I'm interested in learning more. So now we're going to talk about the how. And this is where we get into the 3-pillar framework. And the 3 pillars are an audience, an offer, and a vehicle. And at the center of that, all of this can be done through LinkedIn. Yes, as Jeff mentioned, you do obviously when you get to the sales conversation, you want to take it offline. You want to get it off LinkedIn. You want to get it onto a phone call or in-person meeting when those start back up. But in terms of defining your audience, engaging with them, providing them an offer, and how you do that, all can be done through LinkedIn. And this is part of what makes this platform so powerful here. So audience, just a group of people who share common characteristics, pain points, desires, and use the same language to describe those things. So, if most advisors that we talk with, or a lot of them, when we ask them, well, who is it that you want to work with? Anybody with money. Well, somebody who's just, maybe starting out their career is a lot different than a retiree, is a lot different than a business owner, is a lot different than an executive in a Fortune 500 company, right? Those are not all the same people. They don't all have the same pain points, desires, right? So who specifically do you want to work with? Now, one of the powerful things about LinkedIn, and this is Sales Navigator, but you can do some searches and stuff even with just the free LinkedIn, is the ability to search and define your audience that you want to reach out to and create lists based on certain criteria. So again, you could have, I want to look for this type of company with less. I mean, I was talking to a guy yesterday who's going to be coming on board with one of our programs here in the next week. And he wants to work with business owners with less than 50 employees. Sweet. We can identify those through LinkedIn. So you can do titles. Again, LinkedIn is very powerful because it's a database, and like any solid database, you're able to search it, right? And so this is where you're able to really narrow down, identify your audience and narrow that down. So this is one of our clients. This is just a screenshot of one of our tracking sheets we use. Now, is LinkedIn perfect? No. Every once in a while, some will slip through the cracks. But look at this list. I just pulled this morning. Owner and president. Owner, president, owner, business owner, chairperson, owner, founder, owner, right? He works with business owners, right? Sure, there's a couple here, legal advisor. That may not be his ideal audience. but you can see the vast majority meet his initial criteria. And again, this isn't the end of the start of the process. This is the start. This is the initial screening based on title, based on location, based on number of employees at the company, right? Like this is the initial screening, but I'm just showing you how powerful this is. Once you know your who and your what, then you can start positioning yourself as an authority. We call it an authority advisor, a trusted advisor. There's 5 key areas: your headshot, your background image, your title, and there's some training you can access at the end of this. I know we're kind of pressed on time, so we're going to reveal the other 2 as well as go in depth in all 5 of them in this free training that you can get access to at the end of the webinar, which Jeff will talk about here in a little bit. So we have our audience. Second thing is the offer. What can you offer them of value to get them to raise their hand, to get their attention, to addresses their needs or desires? So most people have heard of know, like, and trust, right? There's actually 5 steps. After you build know, like, and trust, you've got to get the person to raise their hand, to self-identify that, yes, I want to learn more. And then you got to move them to the actual sales call. So the first 3, know, like, and trust, you build by optimizing your LinkedIn profile and producing content, which we talked about before. You produce weekly content or bi-weekly content, you are automatically positioning yourself as one of the top 1% of LinkedIn users. You stand out. Your reach, your content that you post will start getting shown to more and more people. So profile and content, the offer, which we're talking about now, that's where you get somebody to raise their hand. We use a guide. We call it the Client Trusted Advisor Strategy Guide. It's literally the blueprint of the entire process we walk our clients through. You can also use books, right? Something that challenges their way of thinking, something that's personal. I'll talk about here the RSVP here in a second, acronym, but right, a book is another great way of an offer. Because you know, if you've kind of pre-filtered them, right? They're business owners. They've been in business so many years. They have less than 50 employees. They, you know, if you pre-select them and then you talk about their pain points, then you get them to raise their hand and you have something meaningful to offer them. So the RSVP acronym, you want to make your offer relevant, specific, valuable, and personal. So even a book, you can write a personal note. You can talk about how this applies to their situation, right? As a successful business owner, you're probably going to pay a lot of tax. Listen, there's a way you can get yourself into a 0 tax bracket. Are you interested in learning more, right? They'll read the book, they'll get the how, but they won't know, they'll get the what they need to do, but not actually how they go about and implement it. Then they'll come to you because you've now positioned yourself as an authority, and they'll say, hey, how can I get the same result? And they sign up as a client. So again, the training, we go into a lot more detail about the offer, how you get it in front of your audience, when to do it. So then the vehicle is the mechanism to efficiently get your offer in front of your audience. Again, I've gone through these stats, but I cannot stress how powerful LinkedIn when used correctly. Your audience is on there. Does that mean every single person who could potentially be a client is on there? No, but there's enough of them that you can literally work LinkedIn your entire career and never run out of prospects, of good quality prospects. So 3 steps to leveraging LinkedIn. Again, first you got to identify who you want to serve. That's where the audience comes in. You got to engage with them. That's where messaging and having an offer, having something like a guide, something like a book that would provide massive value, and you tailor your message to them specifically. That's why it's easier to focus on one particular audience, so you can position yourself as, I help blank, right? I help whatever subset group of people you work with achieve X benefit. And then finally, the conversion process, and that's getting them on a call and actually converting them into clients. So one of the powerful things, and again, we go into the details of how to do all this, when to do it, all that in this training that you can access at the end of the webinar, but is personalized videos. So again, here's one I did the other day. They only take a few minutes to record, short message. This was Monday. So show you the power of this. Monday, I recorded these 2 videos. You can see the timestamp, 2:43. That lady responded in, I don't know, 19 minutes, scheduled a call for next week. This guy, Steven, I recorded the video and sent this message at 2:59. 3 minutes, he responds and meeting called. He's already met my initial criteria. He's already viewed and interacted with some of my content. It just took, you see, here's the thing. Most people are not going to go out and schedule a time on your calendar themselves. But if you reach out with a personal message after you've provided them value, they are more than open to getting on a call. But they aren't going to go out and necessarily schedule the call themselves. So yes, there is a little bit of work involved in getting from them interested to getting them on your calendar. And this is, again, part of what we go through in the training. You may say that's great for you, but what about like your clients? Well, again, I just randomly pulled one of our clients, Kimberly. In the past week, she's had 7 sales opportunities, which has led to 4 book calls. And when we spoke with her the other day, and we'll get an update here this afternoon, but it resulted in 2 new clients. Again, it's knowing what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, and then just consistently following through with it, spending a few minutes a day doing these videos, reaching out, creating some content. You start getting, once you get the system built and dialed in, then it starts running like clockwork. And again, you need an audience. Who is it that you want to serve? You need an offer. What's something of value that's intriguing, that's going to provide them value, massive value. And then how do you get in front of them? How do you get that offer in front of them? Again, LinkedIn is great. LinkedIn allows you to identify your audience. LinkedIn allows you to do messaging through the platform, videos through the platform, post content through the platform. Like, the great thing with LinkedIn is you never have to leave the LinkedIn platform to do all of this. So again, it works extremely well. They're not having to go to external websites. They're not having to log into all these things. It's a very frictionless process. So what to do next? Again, I'll turn it back over to Jeff here in a second, but basically you're going to have an opportunity to get access to in-depth training on how to go about doing all this, how to determine your audience, how to optimize your profile, how to use the different search functionalities, when, how, and why, and what to send in personal videos, and just basically all of our LinkedIn training. Obviously, I mean, we spend hours and hours coaching clients on doing all of this. It's not something I could go into in 15 minutes, but I wanted to show you the power of LinkedIn. And I'll leave you with this one final thought. The only way to change your circumstances is to change your actions. So many, especially when COVID hit, and I don't like to necessarily harp on COVID because I think we're all tired of COVID this, COVID that, but a lot of our methods of prospecting, a lot of our, client generation techniques change or came to a stop when COVID hit, and just our way of life changed. Right? Hopefully it's not forever, but for right now, yeah, there's things we can do and there's things we can't do. But rather than sit there and sulk or, question, what do I need to be doing? Like, we have a proven process. And if you want to change your circumstances, if you're not generating qualified leads and sales opportunities right now, and you want that, then you need to change your actions. And doing the right things and doing like LinkedIn and things like that is absolutely what we have found one of the best ways to do that. So, Jeff, I will comments, or I will turn it back over to you here.
Before we move on, I just wanted to quickly kind of contrast LinkedIn to Facebook, because people are probably familiar with, Facebook is the place to run ads, and there's a lot of differences between Facebook and LinkedIn and how they work and how we can attract targeted leads. Maybe let's just have a little discussion of the difference between expense generated on LinkedIn versus the expense to generate a lead on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. You want me to talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So, and just to give you a little, so one of the reasons I think Jeff's asked me about this is,
you've done a lot of Facebook advertising.
I've done a lot of Facebook advertising. I've spent over $1 million managing client ad spend in Facebook ads. Again, 2 very different platforms. So one of the great things, so okay, let me kind of back up. Facebook, a lot of times what you'll do is you spend money, you pay to play, and you run ads in the hopes of capturing name, email, and phone number, right? And on Facebook, that's considered a lead, is when you're able to capture a name, email, and phone number. Now, a lot of times you're going to spend 10 to 25, 30 bucks to capture that. LinkedIn, you can have it set up so when you simply connect with them, you capture that information, is one thing. The other thing, and this is a huge thing of late, Facebook, really, the quality of Facebook has really deteriorated. There's a lot of fake accounts. There's a lot of, people will respond to the ad, but then when you reach out to them, they have no idea what you're talking about. So you end up typically spending $100 to $200 to really get a good solid lead, somebody who's interested in learning more about what you do, right? Where again, with LinkedIn, where you're getting a much better quality lead, they're more professional. You're able to have more of a conversation around it, and again, you can do it for free. You spending your time on LinkedIn, where Facebook truly is a pay to play. I would say, to me, running Facebook ads would be the equivalent of using Sales Navigator for 80 bucks and running lists. It would be kind of
not everybody knows what Sales Navigator is, but we won't get into that here because obviously that's going to be something maybe we can talk about in the training.
Yeah. So real quick, so basically LinkedIn there's free LinkedIn, and then you can pay a little bit and you get a little more search criteria and things like that. But yeah, I mean, again, from somebody who has run over $1 million in Facebook ad spend for clients across the world, from the US to Canada to Australia to the UK. Like, I have moved to LinkedIn because of you get better quality, you can get better and lower cost results, and it's
usually not managed by somebody either, right? I mean, it's usually the decision maker. You're actually reaching the person that the account you think you're connecting with is actually that person, where on Facebook it could be outsourced to somebody.
Yeah, a lot of businesses will outsource their Facebook, their page, their things like that. But LinkedIn, because it's more of a more professional platform, I really don't know anybody who outsources the management of their LinkedIn profile to somebody else. Or if they do have somebody helping them out, they're still involved in it. Like, they're still active. So when you have messages on LinkedIn, you are talking to the actual person. You're not going through a gatekeeper, things like that. Where yes, on Facebook, a lot of times when you run ads or things like that, what you're really getting is the gatekeeper signing up or starting the conversation, where LinkedIn, really, you bypass. I mean, yeah,
it's probably one of the few ways that you can actually get around a gatekeeper these days still. So
yeah,
without a lot of effort, because you're probably directly connecting to the person
Yeah, I mean, even if like most business owners, they'll have an assistant who will be a gatekeeper on for phone calls and emails and things like that. But again, the business owner's typically not giving the assistant full access to their LinkedIn profile, right? They're still the ones managing their LinkedIn account. So yeah, it's a great way. I mean, you can connect and have conversations with, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies and stuff. I mean, it's really a unique platform that, again, you can bypass the gatekeepers. But again, it goes back to, you got to know who your audience is. You got to have some sort of compelling offer and messaging. And then LinkedIn is a great platform to actually then initiate all that and have those conversations. So absolutely.
Well, that brings us to our next piece of the webinar. So thank you for sticking around to kind of see what we're talking about here, everyone. I want to ask everybody just a quick question. We're going to continue this. Hopefully you found this kind of enlightening, that you've learned a little bit about what's going on in the current market, where might be a good opportunity. And then we actually have a bunch of stuff put together here for you where all of this kind of comes together seamlessly into a system that you can use to take advantage of all the principles both Michael and I talked about. So if you'd like to see that, I'd love it if you just type in the toolbar, yes, and I'd be happy to get into the details here, and then we'll open it up for questions after that. So, all right, everyone, lots of yeses. So let's dive in here. We call this the recession-proof prospecting system, and it is designed to get you more leads. And of course, leads are different than selling to referrals, but and if you're not clear about that, that's something that you might want to talk to one of our consultants about before taking that step, because you do need to be prepared to sell a lead differently than you do a referral. But let's talk a little bit about what you're going to get in our package here. So first off, we use a book called The Power of Zero. Many of you have heard of it. We are using something called a borrowed bestseller strategy. Also has a very powerful message that we have found that is resonating with the market. So you get 25 copies shipped to your office. Retail value of that is $500. 25 copies of The Power of Zero, The Tax Train is Coming DVD. This is a professional Hollywood produced DVD. Great film. If you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend watching it. You get those in physical form. There's a reason for that. We're not going to get a whole lot into that, but like I said, there's the tangible deliverable is an important piece of the marketing process here. And so that's why they get a DVD and not just a link to a digital movie, even though many of us may not even have a DVD player today. That works anyways. You also get what we've put together with traffic and pipelines. So Michael and I and Michael's partner Daniel, best-selling author and LinkedIn expert as well, have put together something we call the Quantum 30-Day Pipeline First Gear. So this isn't designed to be an overly complicated hours and hours of training. It's designed to give you kind of the essential nuts and bolts of what you need to be actually effectively generating leads online using this process and the leverage of what we're doing here. We're also including something called a done for you borrowed bestseller share funnel. This is actually a landing page where it kind of helps sell the book and the DVD as a package to any prospect that you want to give this to. So we're going to give it to them for free, completely for free, and they can learn more about the book and the offer there. And that's already done for you. You would just get a free copy of that. And just for being here today, we're also including our summit. If you haven't seen this before, we did a summit in February called Cracking the IUL Code. This is just a week-long, 10-hour in-depth dive on IUL. So if you sell IUL, or even if you don't, this is a great place to learn about it. You get the whole tutorial for free with part of when you sign up for this program. And the total value of this is $4139.75. We're actually not charging that. But if all this did for you was finally get you that pipeline of new qualified connections, would it be worth it? Even just having a bunch of people that you can connect, that you're connected to, that you can talk to, could be very valuable. If all this did was help you systemize the process of getting their attention, because maybe right now you don't really, it's kind of haphazard or random, and you don't have the right message, you don't have the right tools to get them to raise their hand, you think it would be worth it? What if it gave you that reliable system for nurturing them into prospects, right? So once they become a lead, now we nurture them into an actual prospect, and maybe then, of course, we have a shot at a real sale. Would it be worth it? Hopefully you say yes to all three of those. So our special offer for all of this today, and I'm not going to spend much more time on this, we're just going to open it up for questions. You can get it for absolutely nothing. All you have to do is go to recessionproofprospecting.com to sign up, and a marketer or wholesaler will get in touch with you and let you know what's required. There's some minimal production requirements, as well as a non-disclosure agreement, but other than that, that's pretty much it. If you still have further questions, you can call our office at 800-356-4189. That's 800-356-4189. If you prefer to have a chat with somebody before you move ahead. Otherwise, you can just go ahead and get on prospecting.com and sign up for the entire package. All the details are listed there, and you'll hear from a marketer on our staff shortly. So, all right. So let's open it up for questions. I know there may have been some questions entered along the way here, so let's just take a look. I am seeing a bunch of yeses, so let's see here. So Dave has a great question. This could be used to target distribution solution prospect. You know, this is really to engage a prospect around a powerful message that's relevant to them today. And it can be a sale for life insurance, for annuities, for assets under management. It could be for any of our advanced life insurance strategies in the quantum marketing system. In fact, we have some unique messaging as part of the full quantum 30-day pipeline program. There's different levels of it, but the full one has some custom messaging that is even more precisely targeted. So this is, think of this as kind of the, like we call it, the first gear. This is sort of the first foot in the door. So you start doing some LinkedIn marketing. You start engaging people on LinkedIn and building a prospecting funnel through LinkedIn. This is what this is all about. We want to get you started with it with stuff that's going to work. Can it work even better still? Yes, absolutely. With even more targeted and more customized messages and even more targeted audiences. So depending on who your market that you really want to go after is, you know, we can do that on LinkedIn. But it all starts with you knowing who that is, and then what are you going to offer them, right? So as Michael already mentioned earlier. Let's see. Got a question. We want the phone number one more time. 800-356-4189. So if you want to talk to a marketer about the program, feel free to give us a call. We have about 25 wholesalers available who can answer your questions and help you kind of get set up. And if you don't know who ECA Marketing is, I probably will tell you a little bit about it. ECA Marketing is one of the largest FMOs in the country. We're closing in on, I think, $1.5 billion to $2 billion in sales annually. So we're a good sized firm. We've got over 50 employees. We're based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, been around for about 35 years and have a reputation for being really good at what we do. So I hope if you haven't ever kicked the tires with us or never had a chance to do business with us, that you do talk to one of our wholesalers to learn more about what we offer, because you know, we're one of the few FMOs in the industry today that is experiencing growth because of the agents we work with and the support and the tools and the marketing that we have helped provide them has driven sales in a time where, you know, index annuity sales are down industry-wide 50% and our competitors are shrinking. You might not even be able to get a hold of them from what I hear oftentimes in the industry. So we have people answering the phone. We are working remote mostly, but we are still here and working for you. So in any case, let's see. Van has a question, and when does so when you sign up for the program, the Traffic and Pipelines Quantum program, the first year program, this is a custom program that we're introducing here today. That is from the get-go. So, you know, you get all of this. So I'm going to go back another slide here, or forward another slide, just to go back through it so you can see all the stuff. So it's the 25 copies of the Power of Zero book. This is part of your tangible deliverable, your offline deliverable, the 25 Power of Zero Tax Train is Coming DVDs. That's a big box of stuff that we'll send you once you qualify for it. You'll get access to then this Quantum 30-day pipeline first gear training. That will include several folks, me, Michael, Daniel, and our own Facebook guru as well. And then of course you get the borrowed bestseller funnel, which is also integrated into this process. This is an easy way to use social media, email, to actually get this to someone so they can learn more about what the offer is you're making, and then they can opt in there. And then also you have access to our free IUL summit that we did back in February, and that's like 10 hours of training on IUL if you are interested in learning more about some unique or advanced markets concepts that we've used to grow our business, that we've helped agents successfully grow their business and increase the average case size to over 6 figures in commission on the life side, that's a very valuable little bonus for you too. So you get all that stuff, and of course, you get it for nothing today. So go to recessionproofprospecting.com. All the details are there, or call 800-356-4189. Let's see, we have some other questions. Let's see. Well, it looks like some of you are calling. So what do you guys think? I mean, does this look like something you would want to put some effort into? I don't know what you are all doing for marketing now, but if you are buying leads, I think the opportunity here is that you gain control of this instead of having somebody else with kind of an unknown process to generate those leads. You actually get a clear path to pre-qualify your own leads based on who you want as your ideal market. Van's not clear about how Michael is involved. This is a joint venture, so we have a joint product that we've created. It's a combination of LinkedIn marketing to a targeted market. So this is all part of the package. So you get that, and this is normally something that sells for about $500 or $400. You get that piece of it. That training itself is a retail cost of $490 or $397. You get that free when you sign up through this offer today. If you're already a producer with ECA marketing, yeah, I would just call and talk to your marketer, and you can look at whether or not you're able to get into the program and what's required. So thanks for all the questions. We are at our 1 hour mark, so we had kind of slated about 45 minutes to do the presentation and show you what this is, and then 15 minutes of Q&A. If anybody has a question, I'll give you one last call for questions. And maybe before we leave, I wanted to thank Michael for being on, and I think this is some exciting stuff because it does work even today. We are finding really good results with this. I can tell you of an agent that I work with in North Dakota who's generated $100,000 commission opportunity from this process. One in Texas that's working on a $250,000 opportunity for life insurance. That's commission, not just not premium, commission from using this process through LinkedIn, cold through LinkedIn with a physician opportunity. So just know that this works right now, which is important because a lot of marketing has
Jeff,
really...
you want me to share that opportunity that fell in our lap?
Yeah.
We tell you about?
Yeah. Let's talk about that quick before we wrap it up here.
Yeah. So I could have added this when I was talking earlier. But yeah, so I mentioned every once in a while, like obviously you try to define your audience, your criteria and stuff. Every once in a while, something slipped through the cracks. But through our process, I had to call a guy, reach out, hop on a call, and the start of the call, he goes, I'm running late to this other thing I've got to do, so I'm gonna make this real brief. I've got $18 million in investable assets. I'm not happy with who I'm currently using. What can you do for me? I'm like, why couldn't 18 million fall in my lap while I was an advisor? But I had to tell him that I'm no longer an advisor ourselves, but we work with advisors. And so, but yeah, I mean, the process works. Like, I mean, again, that wasn't our focus, but because of the messaging and the offer and the way, the content we put out and things like that. I mean, literally the guy's like, hey, I need to get on a phone with you today. And he's like, and he starts the conversation saying, I've got 18 million in investable assets and I'm not happy. And I like the way you've been communicating with me. Never met the man, not even, he's probably like 3,000 miles away from me. So not saying that's going to happen every day or anything like that, but that just happened to me last week. So again, like the process works. Sure, there's going to be different levels of like success and all, but when you're consistent and when you stick with it, like it's going to just continue to grow and get better and better over time. So, and one last thing, if you are on LinkedIn, I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. So feel free to shoot me a connection request and everything, and just drop me a message saying you were on the, you're on Jeff's webinar. And again, would love to connect with you guys.
Yeah, and there's one other question we'll just tackle here before we wrap everything up. Can you share an example of the video shared on LinkedIn? This is not a professionally produced video. This is something that comes from you. So Michael, do you want to just tackle that real quickly? I know there's more detail in the training on this, but that we're going to be doing. So we'll just keep it brief.
Yeah, so there's actually two different ways in particular that we recommend doing it. One is done through the computer, essentially, where you're using a free technology to essentially, you've got your camera where you're showing up in the corner of the screen, and like their LinkedIn profiles in the background. And it's very, again, if you go back to the RSVP method, right, you want it to be relevant, specific, all that stuff. So they're literally a minute and a half videos. But yeah, when we send them, how we send them, I'll call it the script, but it's not like I'm reading a script or anything. What we teach is basically, it's better to be
more of a framework, right? It's camp.
Yeah, and you're wanting to show up as being personal. Like if you're sitting here reading from a script, it's going to be robotic, and people aren't connecting with you. They're not going to do business with you because you're a robot. They're doing it because of the connection they make with you, right? Not the LinkedIn connection, but the connection in terms of personality, energy, whatever, different things, right? So yeah, they're just short videos. I mean, minute and a half. I try to do 10 a day. It takes me about 40 minutes, 45 minutes to record, type up a quick message and send them. But it's just, again, it's that consistency, doing it every day. This morning, I had somebody respond to my video I recorded a week and a half ago. So again, it's not everyone is going to respond in 15 minutes, but when you literally are just, if you think about it, how long have you been on LinkedIn, and how many times has anybody ever sent you a video? Probably never. It's a way to cut through the noise. It's a way to stand out. It's a way to show them that you're not some automated messaging or, anything like that. Like, you're legit taking time out of your day to record a quick video that's personal, that's directed to them. It goes a long way. But yeah, all the details and everything, we do we'll share everything. We share all that in the video, in the training, that you can get access to and stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's couple different free softwares and things like that. Loom, Loom is one of the ones. There's a couple others we recommend that have a little more, they're free, but they just have a little more functionality, and things like that. So yeah, I mean, there's several different ways, but again, it's more just making that connection and being personal and just being vulnerable, I mean, and open.
Yep. Yeah. And a lot of this, like I said, will be covered in the tutorial, in the training that we do. So make sure you get signed up so that you can be part of the first year training and get yourself moving on LinkedIn with a very simple process that does connect and generate some quality new leads for you. So I want to thank everybody for taking the time today, and for those of you who stuck around to the very, very end, 7 minutes after we started here, or after we ended. I hope you find the time was valuable, and we are really excited about working with you and having you start using LinkedIn in your marketing. Have a great day, everybody.